While you were all sleeping after watching the midterm election night results, I was pulling a polling all-nighter, working on a massive set of national and state level exit polling, and I can finally release the results, which tell us some groundbreaking things about the issue of immigration. First, I would like to thank our longtime sponsors, Numbers USA, who also graciously funds our bi-weekly Rasmussen Reports Immigration Index, which tracks how views change about immigration over time. Here's a graph showing the historical data. A lower number generally means that voters want tougher illegal immigration enforcement and reduced overall legal immigration. Look at how things drastically changed when Trump lost the 2020 election. Our Platinum subscribers also have access to the full crosstabs, so individual demographic responses can be tracked over time. For instance, this chart shows how closely the index for Hispanic voters in red has tracked the overall index blue since we've been asking these questions since late 2019. First up, how closely have you been following the immigration positions of the congressional candidates for whom you voted for in this election? 82% say closely, and 49% say very closely. But here's the headline. Hispanic voters are following this issue closer than anyone else, with a whopping 87%. And they're following this topic very closely, 14 points more than white voters. They're even following the topic 4 points more closely than Republicans. Okay, next one. Very few voters, 15% in fact, say immigration was their top issue this time out. But 60% of voters total put it in their top three, and 87% of voters overall say it's important. So even though it might not have been a top issue this election, or even in the top five, voters are still concerned about immigration issues. But 71% of Hispanic voters put immigration in their top three, and 93% of them say it's important. Only 5% of Hispanics, lower than anybody else but conservatives, say the issue is not important. So to Hispanic voters, more than anyone else, immigration is an important topic, and they're also following their politicians' immigration stances more closely than anyone else. In general, do you favor immigration policies that prevent illegal border crossings and illegal immigrants from getting jobs in the U.S., or do you favor policies that allow that? 65% of voters say they want policies that prevent illegal immigration, and only 22% favor illegal immigration. Here's how the demographics stack up. At least a plurality of each major demographic thinks policies that prevent illegal immigration are better, but less than a majority of Democrats, at 48%, say policies preventing illegal immigration are better, and the spread over wanting illegal immigration is only 11% for them. 18 to 39-year-olds are the next least likely to favor policies that prevent illegal immigration, followed closely by women. Hispanic voters are pretty close to the overall voter opinions and tougher on illegal immigration than black voters, but not quite as much as white voters here. But it's important to point out that a strong majority, nearly 2/3, want policies that prevent illegal immigration, and only 25% of Hispanic voters want pro-illegal immigration policies. But what about levels of legal immigration? 40% of voters favor increased levels of overall immigration, and 47% say reduced levels. Clearly, voters are much more favorable to legal immigration, but still a plurality think that policies should reduce immigration overall. Here's the chart. Republicans want to clamp down on immigration the most, far more than anyone else. But the very next demographic is Hispanic voters, who by a 19-point margin and 12 points more than all voters favor policies that reduce overall immigration. And unbelievably, next up is women and black voters, showing that this is potentially an area where Republicans could show some backbone and pick off strong Democrat voters. The next question, rating Biden on the issue of illegal immigration, shows that voters think he is doing a horrible job. The overall good plus excellent is 32%, just 1 point higher than they rate his performance on China, keeping in mind that a strong majority of voters acknowledge Biden is likely knowingly profiting from Chinese companies through his son's business deals. So voters are largely anti-illegal immigration, even a plurality of Democrats, and they absolutely tie this issue to Biden, even his own party, where only 20% of Democrats give him an excellent rating and 22% give him a poor rating. Here are the race numbers, however, and this is an absolute mind blower. Hispanic voters rate him horribly, far lower than any other ethnic group overall. So even though you can look at the numbers and say, well, there's about a quarter of Hispanic electorate who does favor some pro-illegal immigration policies, this is absolutely not a winning issue for Democrats among Hispanic voters. In the remainder of the survey, we asked additional questions about specific immigration policies like chain migration and E-Verify. Since this is a publicly sponsored poll, I encourage you to download the crosstabs and explore them for yourself. Please post any mind blowers you find in the comments. But here's a sample. On the question of illegal immigration, is the government doing too much or too little to reduce illegal border crossings and visitor overstays? Only 13% of voters say too much, and 58%, or more than a 4-to-1 margin, say too little. Here are the party numbers. Republicans, by over a 7-to-1 margin, say the government needs to do more, and in a total shock, independents say the government needs to do more by almost a 12-to-1 margin. Now, I've compared party responses on a lot of issues, and there is always disagreement, with the Democrats and Republicans pretty moderately split, and the independents falling somewhere in between. But take a moment to breathe in those Democrat numbers. They are out in left field on this issue compared to everyone else. They've certainly heard reports of millions of illegal immigrants crossing the border and seen photos of the caravans, and only 35% of Democrat voters think that the government is doing too little, while a combined 65% of them are either totally okay, unwilling to comment, or think the government needs to roll out a red carpet. This is a head scratcher to me because in comparison, even though, for instance, abortion is a major election motivator for Democrats, less than 20% of Democrats in even California, an abortion hotbed, think abortions after 6 months should be legal, even though complete abortion permissiveness is a key component of the National Democrat platform. In this one instance of illegal immigration, more than any other controversial election issue, Democrats' voters' values really do seem to somewhat match the national platform, with no consideration of national sovereignty. But now let's look at race. Hispanic voters, by almost a 5-to-1 margin, and significantly more than all voters overall, think the government needs to take more action to curb illegal immigration. In fact, on immigration, with this question, they have a tougher stance than any other ethnic group. And let's compare for a moment the views of Democrats to Hispanic voters. They're on a completely different planet with this one. If you want my take on this topic, Hispanic voters don't like wide open borders. Immigration is more important to them as an issue than any other voters, even Republicans, and Democrats have become the party of wide open borders. Finally, in this poll, we asked people who they voted for in 2020 and benchmarked the poll to the 2020 reported popular vote outcome, and asked voters who they'd back in a hypothetical 2024 Trump-Biden rematch. Like every other time we've asked, Trump now outperforms Biden in this poll, with Biden losing 7% of his support and putting Trump up by 3. But now notice, Trump doesn't actually pick up more voters overall in this poll. And of course, Biden would probably win back some of his lost support. But here's an important point. Trump actually picks up 2 points among Hispanic voters, and Biden loses a whopping 9 points. For more on the topic of immigration, as well as how it influences the Hispanic vote, please refer to our previous video, which covers the Hispanic national exit polling results, and I'll soon be linking it at the end of the video. And check out Jim Robb's book from Numbers USA, Political Migrants, Hispanic Voters on the Move, as well as his eye-opening Washington Times op-ed, Surprise, Hispanic Americans Want Border Control, both of which are linked in the video details. Thanks for watching.